So the government of the Federation has formally asked the Health Minister for an updated position on the planned December 31, 2025 ban on sachet and small pep bottle alcohols by NAFDAC. The SGF needs a clear government stance to decide whether to proceed with a ban, which aims to curb public health risk from these cheap, accessible drinks linked to addiction, accidents, and violence. The SGF says this ministry must, clearly spell out the justification for the ban, the evidence guiding the decision, and how affected stakeholders will be accommodated. Let's remind you that a month ago, the Senate issued an ultimatum for the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control to end the nationwide production of alcoholic beverages in sachet and small bottles by December 31, 2025. For the first part of our conversation tonight, that's our focus, but also it is important to say there's been a lot of back and forth over this issue. For instance, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria says it is counterproductive and forbodes economic dislocation of significant proportions for the nation at this period. The DG, Segun Ajayi-Kadri, says it will lead to serious consequences, including loss of over 1.9 trillion naira investment, mass retrenchment of over 500,000 direct employees, and approximately 5 million indirect reduction in capacity utilization in manufacturing and loss of indigenous businesses. He further warned that aside from the heavy losses they would incur, a ban would open a floodgate of illicit and unwholesome substances that are not subject to regulation and beyond the control of the relevant agencies. So it became very important for us to have this conversation. A ban or no ban? Let's weigh our options. Public Affairs Analyst Terrence Kuanum is my guest tonight. Good evening, Mr. Kuanum. Thank you very much for joining me on the program. Thank you.
Thanks for having me in.
Right. So how complicated does this look? Are we really at a crossroad? NAFDAC, the Ministry of Health, say we must put an end to this. We're losing young Nigerians to this. Adults are losing their internal organs to this. But manufacturers say they need more time, or perhaps saying, let's continue to manage this. What's your own perspective?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I think what is fundamental here is for us to look at it as Nigerians for what is in our interest. And I think the Office of the Secretary to Government of the Federation is doing that because in the midst of this crisis, the House of Representative Committee on NAFDAC wrote to the Secretary to Government of the Federation explaining the resolutions they have taken after conducting, after being in consultation with the stakeholders. And they realized that, like you said, over 500 direct jobs and over 5 billion indirect jobs are going to be lost, and is an investment of over 7 trillion in our economy. And so the SGF is in discussion with NAFDAC and the Ministry of Health to try and look at ways that this could be able to go through a resolution that will be in the interest of Nigerians. And so he advised that the issue of ban at the moment should be put aside, and let's holistically look at the issues, because the primary responsibility of NAFDAC is to regulate these agencies, companies, to make sure that what they are producing consumable and won't be tantamount to danger to our health. And they have the ones that have licensed these companies for this production and XYZ. And so we need to come to the table and look at what is wrong, that in the middle of licensing a company to produce a product, you are now coming out to ban. And then the mix-up of what is the role of NAFDAC and what is the role of standard organization. At the same time, when you put this together, you notice that there is a lot of confusion in the mix. But the Secretary to Government of the Federation, being an experienced administrator, have advised the Ministry of Health and NAFDAC to put an end to this ban, and let's all be in consultation with both the stakeholders and the regulatory agencies and government policies, so that we can be able to resolve this once and for all. I think is the best way to go at the moment. We need to look at what the SGF is going to bring out as responsible for these actions. I know that The President Renew Hope agenda is in the total interest of the masses of this country, and waking up overnight as Nigerians to lose that number of jobs and that investment in our economy, I think it won't be right, and I think the regulations should be topmost rather than going into harsh realities of banning these productions completely. And I think we must also commend government for regulating these productions this far, because these are not productions that have been in this country for 6 months, just a year. They have been there for so many years. And I think they have regulated them enough to be able to be safe for consumption and XYZ. And so I think something is amiss somewhere, and government should be able to look into it carefully to be able to bring it out so that this thing will come to an end. And the public should also be calm, because we believe in the capacity of the SDF. We believe that the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu would not be able to wake up overnight and put Nigerians on the street jobless and destroy an economy that he has suffered to rebuild for 2 years to be able to come to this stability to be destroyed overnight. So I think the SDF is going to look into this, and we have total confidence that this is going to come to an end very soon.
All right. But again, you know, I would not want us to have a one-sided conversation. So I'll do my best to lay all the cards on the table, simply because this is not a fresh conversation. NAFDAC and the Ministry of Health are both saying this directive is in line with global regulatory standards and international best practices, which is aimed at reducing alcohol-related harm among Nigerians. And we know how bad the situation is. If manufacturers are now saying this would harm the economy, I mean, they had 5 years to prepare themselves for this. I remember that in 2018, the Federal Ministry of Health at that time, Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, and NAFDAC as well, and some industry body voluntarily signed a 5-year MOU to gradually phase out sachet and small bottle alcoholic drinks, which expired in 2023. But the federal government listened to their appeals and gave them an extra year. But we're back here. How serious are these economic concerns? And, you know, the truth is, can they outweigh the public health rationale?
Yeah, I think the government is looking into that, and as a responsible government, those issues and concerns raised by government, if the stakeholders are brought on the table and they are on the same side and the same page with government, I think those issues can be resolved. Because these are people who are into production, and they know exactly what the government is talking about, and the government wants to meet up world best practices in these productions, and it is for the manufacturers to be able to meet up that standard. And I think I'm not, to my notice, having any resistance from any manufacturer that is refusing to follow the guidelines of NAFDAC. And I think that alone, it's a major boost that if there's a proper regulation and in consonance with realities that are on the table for the manufacturers, I think we can be able to come to the middle for everybody to go back to business. And the manufacturers themselves will also be tasked with the responsibility of fishing out those that are going to contravene the regulations that are going to be given to them moving forward. I think if everybody comes from both sides to meet at the middle, these issues will be a thing of the past. We need to encourage local production in our economy because we want to be an exporting economy. With the work that the government has been able to put together, we want to start export at the large scale in the next budget year. And I think rather we should be boosting our local productions to be able to achieve that. And I think it's the issue of regulation that is the issue here, and the manufacturers must be compelled to comply with them, and all of us, I think, will be able to operate in peace, and our economy should be able to grow.
But, you know, for the purpose of clarity, how should the government balance public health concerns with economic realities?
Yeah, that is what I'm saying, that the issues of public health are issues of regulation.
Yes.
And if the manufacturers are put together with policymakers and agree on the basic needs they have to meet before productions will be able to commence, and they are properly regulated and monitored, I think we can be able to meet that standard.
Okay. But do you think the Ministry of Health relied on sufficient data before issuing this directive, or does it appear reactionary? What do you think?
We don't want to jump into conclusion because the National Assembly report is on the table, and they have insisted, they have interacted with stakeholders enough to be convinced that the right thing can be done if everybody is put on the table and it's not one person, one party being on the one side, taking his own decision, and the other party is complaining that we were not involved in the discussion. This is the global best practice to produce these drinks all over the world. We want you to meet this global best practice. This is the next level of regulation we are going to carry out in your production companies. And are you ready for it? It's a yes or no. And if they are ready for it, they will go and comply. They will be regulated. They will be monitored. And if they meet the standard, I think what will be consumed is safe. I think government will be protecting jobs.
Regulations.
Yeah, thanks for that question. And first, let's commend the National Assembly for realizing that. Let's commend the National Assembly for realizing that after conducting the public hearing and then taking a resolution, even though the NAFDAC as an agency has gone ahead to place a ban, the National Assembly did not act rashly. They went to the Policy Coordination Office, which is the office of the Secretary to Government, to lay their complaint that a resolution has been made by the House and has been contravened by an agency of government. And I think this is a government that all the three arms are synergizing and working together. And the SGF has also swiftly risen up to put all policy makers together to be able to look at it. And so, at the moment, he has informed the public that the ban is temporarily on hold pending when all this consultation will be made and then a formal decision will be communicated to the public. And that alone has been able to reduce the panic that was created within the society that these things were happening, and a way forward is going to be brought out. It's going to be a proper coordination because the position of the health of Nigerians is a concern. The issue of running down the economy is also a concern. Both needs to come together to be able to resolve amicably for both to stand and be a benefit to all of us.
And I was also thinking about how this perceived disorganization could affect investor confidence and the ease of doing business in Nigeria. But I guess that's a conversation for another day. But still looking at it from the angle of the SGF, how does he plan to, use this data in guiding the health minister's final decision?
Yeah, first he is in consultation with NAFDAC and the Ministry of Health. They are professionals, and they are going to brief him of the dangers of what they are trying to curtail. The stakeholders are also going to come. He's going to relate with them. He will also know why they are not finding it extremely difficult to comply with the issues NAFDAC and the Ministry of Health have raised. From there, both parties will be able to come together, and these regulations will be laid on the table. And the manufacturers will have the card to pick if they are going to comply or not. And I think at that, everything is going to be resolved. And if they say they are going to comply with whatever standard that is going to be laid by NAFDAC, NAFDAC is also going to take the responsibility of going to regulate, monitor, and confirm if truly these regulations have been complied with. And from there, a whole report will be given out to Nigerians, because it's like you raised about the issue of raising panic for investors. It's not good for us at the moment, and it is good that the SJ was able to come in immediately to be able to put a hold to the absolute ban on the production of these products pending when these investigations will be out, to be able to instill confidence into the polity again and move forward while these investigations are going on.
But again, you also consider the fact that even if the ban is implemented, how feasible is it to enforce nationwide, given the informal alcohol markets? What measures could the government, realistically put in place to ensure compliance without hurting livelihoods? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, if the ban is going to be implemented, there will be machineries that are going to be put in place by government to be able to checkmate it. That is an issue of government implementing a policy, and that is why it needs to be properly coordinated and should be holistically agreed that that is the way forward. And consultation needs to be made properly before such a decision will be taken, because the number of people that we are saying are already involved in both direct and indirect jobs here is already a multitude on your hand to be able to cater for. And I think moving forward steadily and strategically is going to help us better as a government, that will create a crisis on our hand that will be difficult for us to, at the end, find it difficult to control.
And because many have applauded the intervention of the SGF, but extensively now, Mr. Kuanum, what role does this office see itself playing in shaping alcohol regulation policies in Nigeria?
Yeah, it's very simple. Government is very organized. It had all the bodies of regulation. We have NAFDAC that is there. We have standard organizations that is there. We have so many bodies that are there to regulate and make sure that whatever is produced or have come into the country, it is safe for all of us to consume. And I think both of them are headed by extremely competent hands that will be able to come together, synergize, and be able to give us what is safe for consumption, both imported or locally produced.
All right. And like I said before we started this conversation, this controversy over sachet alcoholic beverages, further highlights the tension between public health policy and economic survival. But as the SGF seeks clarification from the Ministry of Health, manufacturers are calling for consultation and clarity. From our end here, we'll continue to keep tracking this developing story. Thank you very much for speaking with us tonight, Public Affairs Analyst Terrence Kuanum. Thank you for your time.